I want to start with the bombast of Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12. So he declared the Big 12 in a better position than they have ever been. Doesn't seem accurate to me. And also declared his clearly as one of the top 3 conferences in America. Where shall we start?
Well, have you seen the video of some of these comments? Because it was incredible. Hold on. The man had a podium and he still felt like he needed to hold his papers right up here. And he was moving his hands like this for those of you who are watching along on YouTube or live. And he was saying, "We have the deepest and most competitive conference. Every game will matter. And I'll say it again." And those were his words. He said, "I'll say it again. We have the deepest and most competitive conference, and every game will matter." Now, I agree every game is going to matter. And I agree that the distance between the tiers of the Big 12 as a 16-team conference are tighter than the distance in tiers of any other power conference. And I agree that there is not a bottom group that outside of Arizona State, you really don't feel like you know who's going to sink to the bottom. That, as Brett Yormark is saying, the difference between bowl eligibility and spending some time on the couch at home is probably 2 touchdowns in October.
Right.
And that those stakes do make the Big 12 an incredible product to tune into, to follow, and to watch, to gamble on as well. I do think that Brett Yormark's position ignores the fact that of the 4 power conferences, the Big 12 is the least likely to have multiple teams in the 12-team college football playoff. And that the Big 12 conference, both in the eyes of the odds makers and other analysts, do not have a lot of schools that you can definitively say are competing at the highest levels of college football. But if we're going by you're the 3rd best conference and the rating score is on stability, yeah, you're the 3rd most stable conference. If your rating is on...
Well, who would be the other 2?
I mean, the SEC and the Big 10 would be 1 and 2. Big 10.
What's more stable than the ACC right now?
The Big 12.
How?
Because the Big 12 doesn't have members actively suing the conference.
Oh yeah, but they're not leaving.
Its stability rankings have to take into consideration multiple lawsuits and pending litigation as a threat to stability.
Okay, that's fair. They're not going anywhere, but that's fair. I'll allow it.
You want to do you want to throw a friendly wager on whether or not anybody's going anywhere?
What's our deadline? August 24, right?
2026. Does the 2026 season start with Florida State as an ACC member?
Yes.
I'll take no.
Really?
All right. Yeah.
So are they going to be an independent?
I'll take no. I introduced the stakes of the game. Right. Now we've got ourselves a friendly cold one on the line on if Florida State is going to be around for 2026.
If we ever play golf together again.
I would love to. I really would love to.
It's been a minute.
So, Brett Yormark also said some things that made my stomach churn. And it's not his bombast or his brazen attitude about it. The idea of being so open-minded for, private equity and capital. And, he stands so opposite on one spectrum for college sports, which is history does not matter. Tradition does not matter. I'm not in charge of a conference. I'm in charge of a Fortune 500 company. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that matters is revenue. And the only thing that matters is growth. And it is the most in my opinion, the most disgusting and cynical approach to college sports.
Yeah, but he's telling the truth because that's what it's become.
That's true. Right. And it is on the exact opposite end of the spectrum of people who have their head in the sand and they're trying to cling to everything that doesn't exist anymore.
Just at the commissioner of the Atlantic Coast Conference. I actually said the same thing.
I am somewhere in between, personally. My own personal tastes are somewhere in between on those. I don't think you can have your head in the sand, but I think just plowing forward with only using words like revenue and growth are disgusting, because you still have fans who care about it like they used to care about it. And
well, yes,
they are losers in all of this. So I'm looking out for the fans here while trying to be realistic enough about the current state of affairs, which, by the way, we're going to hear about, in other college sports leaders talk about all the things that are wrong and all the help that we need. Brett Yormark said, "This is great. We're in a great spot." He called it a, quote, necessary reset. Well, I just think it's interesting that he is positioning himself as this maverick, where I'll tell you who doesn't need to position themselves as anything is Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, or Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner. They don't have to say anything because the machine promotes itself. They don't even have to be out in front like a carnival barker.
They don't, but they're all doing the same thing. And so while I don't like what I hear from Brett Yormark, what he is telling us is the way it is at college football. Forget about the other stuff. The other stuff is all unintended consequences of college football. But that's what the job is. The job is all about creating revenue, getting bigger, squashing the competition. That's all it is. It probably bothers Brett Yormark not a second that even though he didn't destroy the Pac-12, he ended it. Like the destruction of the Pac-12 happened when
it starts in Colorado.
Well, no, it started when Southern Cal and UCLA left.
I think that they could have. I think they could have held that thing together if all the presidents didn't get so jumpy when the Big 12 floated a $2.5 million signing bonus across the table at Colorado, and eventually was able to just leave the light on for the other three members of the Pac-12 that they ended up getting from the corner four.
Well, yeah, but if Southern Cal and UCLA don't leave, then Oregon and Washington stay, and that league is still together.
If the presidents say yes to the deal that was on the table, they've got a similar contract to the Big 12 and a contract that pays them more than the ACC contract.
The Pac-12, really?
Yeah, the Pac-12 had a deal on the table, and the presidents wanted more.
Was that Kleofkov giving them bad advice?
That was university presidents who thought more highly of their position in the marketplace.
Poor decision making, even without Southern Cal and UCLA. This is why we talked to Chip Patterson here. But the other conversation we're having, because there's so many little offshoots of it. There's the reality of what college football has become, and there's the idealism of what a lot of people, I think including you and I, wish it would have still stayed, because we could have still paid players or allowed players to earn money if there were forward-thinking people at the NCAA level and at the university level 10 years ago. And we might have been able to head all of this off if we simply allowed players their value in the marketplace 10 years ago, when we started to hear people talking about this on a more regular basis. But now it's just about a money grab, and maybe this is always where we're going to head anyway once teams started leaving conferences to go to another conference because the financial stakes were higher and better and there was more stability at other leagues. Maybe this is always where we were going to get, but it right now is it's only big business. And we can clown Brett Yormark, who's easy to clown, but he's at the one end of the spectrum, and Jim Phillips is at the other, right? We're not going to hear any bombast from Jim Phillips other than to tout all of the ACC's academic All-Americans, which is awesome, but you don't get paid for that. And really all it's about is creating revenue, like the Totino's Big 12 Media Day. Did that make you laugh as much as it made me laugh? It's
a great partner. It's a great partner for the Big 12.
I'm not knocking it. I'm praising it. I am absolutely praising it.
Yeah, we need the Hardee's ACC Media Day, brought to you by, or the Bojangles ACC football kickoff live from Charlotte. We need we need to have a fight sponsor for Monday when we've got Commissioner Phillips and Florida State all taking the podium within the same little window of time. No DJU, sadly, but yeah, it's an odd position. Big 12 was always going to get talked about more because they were going first.
Right.
The Big 12 holds its media days in the middle of the SEC media days or in the middle of the Big 10 media days. This doesn't reverberate like it does. It's another brazen position, but one that has everybody in the news cycle talking about the Big 12. Right. And certainly that's more than you can say if the conversation was just about the on-field product.
So next week is the SEC, right?
Correct.
And then the following week, we're in Charlotte for the ACC.
I'll be in Indianapolis for the Big Ten.
Oh, you're not even coming to see me in Charlotte?
The Cover 3 podcast is live on CBS Sports Network at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, giving you coverage of Big Ten Media Days. Lots of special guests coming to drop by the desk to hang out with the four of us. So we're excited to take Cover 3 on the road for the first time as a whole group. So I'm very, very sad I'll be missing out on the festivities of the ACC. But again, the scheduling situation, the ACC is running head-to-head with a Big Ten Media Days that includes Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. There's a lot to talk about there as well.
There is, and the fact that Southern Cal, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington are entering that league just gives them more than, I'm going to say it, more than two high-profile universities. Penn State's played great football for a long time, but they are, by nature, a low-profile school with great football pedigree. They had two big dogs until they introduced these four programs, and I shouldn't even say four because UCLA in football is not a big dog. They just live in a big city. But right. Southern Cal, Oregon, and Washington are big players. And so the Big Ten got significantly deeper toward the top. But, I mean, I think the ACC is going to have way more interesting storylines. I'm not knocking the decision. I get with the affiliation with CBS and the Big Ten, that's where you go. But I think the ACC will have so much more juice, even though Jim Phillips is going to downplay everything and tell us that everything is all right, even though Chip Patterson just told us that Florida State's going to be out of the league by 2026.
Oh, no, this is just a friendly wager. Hey, look, I get a lot of friendly wagers wrong. I get unfriendly wagers wrong, you know?
Right.
I mean, we're just out here just floating between 60 and 40. Everyone just rides the wave on that one. It's just bankroll management, baby. That's all we're talking about.
What I am curious, because I agree with you, I'm not into private equity and college sports. I think it opens your door for a lot of trouble if you are bringing in private equity. But there are investments that, I mean, essentially these become donations to keep your business running. I'm sure that there's definitely a return to keep your business running. If the Big 12 were to come up with, a few $100 million of private equity money, they could make it worth Florida State's while to, hey, screw the ACC. We'll essentially reimburse you the money it's going to cost to leave, and you could play here. But that doesn't really get Florida State to where they want to be, which is equal with the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah, I think the Big 12's expansion of revenue also took an interesting turn when Brett Yormark mentioned unbundling football and basketball and selling them separately. I thought that was...
Yeah, because their contract comes up sooner.
30, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's forever, in terms of like, let's see, that would be like in 2018. How the world was different in 2018 compared to where it is now. But yeah, their television contract comes up. If he decides to unbundle it, where on one side you're selling, your Kansas and your Arizona powered basketball set, and maybe you're really splitting it up between multiple revenue partners to be able to drive up the price, and multiple media partners to drive up the revenue. It was an interesting thought in terms of ways that you can get creative with that. It's something the Big 12 can do because it already is split between ESPN and Fox.
Right.
They already sort of exist in that area. It's something that is not as much of an option for the ACC or the SEC, who are entirely in bed with one media rights partner. And so it's something that I'm definitely keeping an eye on from the idea of, what does this all look like moving forward? It also probably hints to the great unbundling of college football altogether. That if we do like an entire breakaway, I mean, that's the old Chip Kelly proposal, right?
That's what I think is going to happen. And I think it's going to happen before we have another cosmic shift in conference affiliation.
Like 40 in that proposal, 40 to 48 college football programs break away and form their own semi-professional league.
Mm-hmm.
We get to redraw the divisions to make them more regionally specific. It would have to lead to an agreement between the power conferences to give up some power or create new payouts. But that is a potential end game that we've been talking about for a couple years now, probably since USC and UCLA or Texas and Oklahoma first made those announcements. Mm-hmm. And when I hear Brett Yormark sort of having the foresight of, and we might, unbundle the way that we do our media rights based on sports, that certainly hints to that being a reality.
Yeah, look, I don't think anybody really has a good idea of what college sports is going to look like 5 years from now. I
always say we're in the no bad ideas portion of this. It also means there's no good ones either.
Yeah, I mean, look, every idea we could have that would make sense on one level would make no sense on another level. I've been saying for a long time, I think that as I've become more of a fan of international football, right? Soccer, regardless of what league we're talking about, the fan bases of those particular clubs are almost identical to fan bases of major U.S. universities. Like NC State fans, to me, I'm just using them as an example. It's not specific to NC State. But NC State fans, to me, are, no different than fans of Arsenal. This is my club. I am a fan of them. Whoever comes in for the 3 years that they're there, I'm a fan of them. Then they go off. Maybe I pay attention, but for the most part, they're out of sight, out of mind. I got new players. It's the same thing. And it's more about community than it is about anything else. So I just think that some form of promotion and relegation within major U.S. sports somehow makes sense, but I just don't know how you pull that off without poking thousands and thousands of holes in it. But that's what I've always thought that's somewhere where we're headed, but I don't know how you do that. And get, it's just flat out pro sports at that point.
Yeah. It's, ultimately this will be decided by the Big Ten and the SEC,
right,
who already have the voting power and the financial benefits of leading the charge of the new college football playoff. And man, if they'd agreed to that college football playoff expansion a couple years ago.
Yeah, the alliance didn't help, right?
The holistic review, the 12-month holistic review.
And that was just being bitter. That was just being angry at the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. Right?
That did not include the same kind of tiered revenue vision that we have now, in which the Big 12 and the ACC declared themselves as not in the same class as the Big 10 and the SEC. So now they get to craft the future, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I'm sad that I'm going to miss you in Charlotte in 2 weeks.
I'm very sad too, because I think I could have really, I could have really done a pretty good job of the middle 2 days. I'm being serious. Anybody can show up to day one when you've got the commissioner in Florida State.
Right.
And anybody can show up to day 4 when you've got Clemson, North Carolina, NC State. It takes real champions to be able to get the storylines and sell the storylines of day 2 and day 3 of what has now grown into a 4-day event for the ACC football kickoff. And I'm being very, very serious. There's no tongue, no cheek.
Right.
I could have crushed it with that opportunity. So I hope that you do, and I'm sure we'll be in contact throughout.
Just a point of reference, because I'm out next Wednesday. It's going to be, I'm not going to talk to you for 3 weeks. There's a hole inside of me right now, Chip Patterson.
First, so are you going to be gone? I guess we'll talk about Open Championship.
Well, we're going to have to figure that out. Who you got? You might as well tell me now, because I'm not going to be here next week.
Oh, no.
No. Wait. We'll reschedule. Maybe we could do Tuesday next week.
I'm just thinking at the Scottish. I got my eyes on Hideki to get things back in line. Minwoo Lee's got a little bit of interesting angles. I think we'll get, Christian Bezadenhout back in the top 20. I'm just sort of like, tweaking the screws. I'm not sure who's going to win at the Renaissance there
in Aberdeen. We're going to have to talk next week somehow. I have to let you go. Chip Patterson, CBSSports.com, Cover 3 podcast, @Chip_Patterson, the best there is. Thanks, man.
Sounds good. Y'all be well.